Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is Joseph Tubb, and in the last video you saw the color study here. You saw me rendering out this color study, and I explained the reason why we do that. But in this video, we're going to go ahead and take this design and we're going to transfer it onto the guitar. But before we start, we need to get the surface nice and smooth. You're going to notice that once you've let the paint dry, there's going to be like little bumps. And they're really not that big a deal, but I like to make sure that when I do this that my surface is nice and smooth and there's little to almost no imperfections on the surface. So we have one more step to do, and that's going to be, we're going to go ahead and sand those off, and we're going to use some of that wet sandpaper, but we're not going to wet it, we're just going to use it. This is 1000 grit, this might be overkill. Now the reason why I want to use such a high grit sandpaper is because I'm not trying to take the surface off. All I want to do is eliminate these little bumps that you can feel. It almost feels like braille or almost like a really fine-grained sand on top of the surface. And we're going to go ahead and eliminate that. Before we do that, I'm going to actually peel off our blue vinyl tape that we did. The purpose of doing this is because then I can take that sandpaper and I can file the edge down just a little bit. Because you're going to notice that there's going to be an edge from the paint. I've learned in my own experience by clear coating right on top and then pulling the paint that little bit of an edge is exposed, and if moisture or anything gets under there, it can start to peel and start to flake off. So I want to make sure that when I go to clear coat this final project, that everything is sealed in the paint. I'm going to go ahead now. If you remember, we did 3 layers of tape. The first layer was to map out the whole guitar. The second layer was the blue tape that we put on, and then we left a little gap between the first layer of tape and the second layer of tape, and that was covered with this third layer of tape. So we're gonna go ahead and peel that third layer off first, and then we're gonna go back and peel off the top blue vinyl layer. And then what we're going to be left with is the blue tape that is left on the sides, which is fine. That's all and we want to leave that on there just to protect the rest of the guitar from any damage, or when we do the final clear coat overspray. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start peeling off this last layer of tape. So I'm just going to go ahead and start peeling this off. Take your time and do not rush. Okay, so now we've removed that third layer, that top layer of the blue vinyl tape, and what we're left with here is the masking tape and that first layer, that first perimeter layer that we put on. Probably gonna run into the situation where you would overlap your areas and now they're underneath the blue tape, especially in this area, and that's my situation. So what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna remove this tape in this area and I'll probably reapply afterwards. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start removing some of it because I can't get to this first layer of tape because it's caught underneath where I've taped off the neck. So I got a pair of pliers here to pull this tape. And again, you wanna be careful in this area as well. Okay, now, what the trick here is, what you want to do is when you peel this, you don't want to peel it just like peeling tape. What you need to do is you need to peel it to where it's angled down. That way, if you're peeling up, there's a chance that you could peel the paint off because you're peeling in an upward motion. So what I like to do is I grab the tape and I kind of peel pulling down. And I just do it very slow. This way, I'm not putting any pressure to pull it up. And this is where the tape starts to go under. So again, just take an X-Acto knife or like a razor blade and try to cut as close as you can to that. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and turn this guitar, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start from this side over here, and it's underneath the tape. So we're gonna do the same thing we did over here. Try to peel up this edge. So we might have to slightly remove this tape. Just a little bit, I'm pretty sure, yeah. And then we'll start peeling it off. There we go. So again, same technique as before. Make sure you're peeling by pulling the tape down. pull this up so maybe you can see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is just to show again. Notice how I'm pulling the tape down, not pulling it this way. You want to angle, you want the angle to be pulling away from the guitar. Like that. And you want to just do that all the way till we get to the finish line. Okay, so now that we've removed the tape, what we're left with is we have the tape on the sides, which we're going to leave, and then what we're left with is our canvas, essentially, for the design. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our sandpaper, and we're going to go and we're going to lightly sand the top just to get it nice and smooth, to remove the little bumps, and we're also going to lightly sand the edge of the white here. And this is just primarily to where when we go to finally spray our clear coat, that you won't be able to feel this edge. Also, it's going to soften it a little bit because right now it's pretty prominent. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to take the 1000 grit sandpaper and we're just going to lightly sand that area. And what you'll notice is you'll start to take some of the primer off. But again, if we're going to do the whole guitar, but we're just trying to get those areas that really need it more than others. But again, you don't need to put any work into this because it doesn't take much. So we're just going to lightly sand the top of this surface. And you can almost hear a difference while you're sanding when you've got it nice and smooth versus the areas that are a little bit more rough. So now when you feel it, it feels really smooth. Okay, so now we have the surface done. So now what you want to do is you want to be very careful and you just want to lightly run the sandpaper along the perimeter. And what this is doing is this is just softening the edge. I can already feel a total difference. And again, just lightly follow that edge. And it's okay if the black gets a little scratched from the sandpaper because when we go to do a final clear coat, it's gonna get covered. When we're completely done, we're gonna blend the top clear coat with the bottom clear coat or the sides, and you won't even be able to tell a difference. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and start putting on our design. So now that we have our design, we have our template, and if you guys need one of these templates, I have it on Facebook. I'll put the link below and you can take this, print it out, and you can draw on it. This is a perfect template for this style of guitar. Another trick and another tool to help us lay out all of this is what I like to do is I like to take the pick guard from the guitar, set it back in position, just line it up, and then take the little part here that holds the strings down. And I like to grab a pencil to map out these areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trace this out. Doing this will help us relate more to our concept design. So I'm going to go ahead and trace these out. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out first because we don't need it in there just yet. And what you want to do is just lightly trace this. And what this does, well, this will just give you a starting point to when you start to actually draw on the guitar. And then I'm going to go ahead and set this in here. So we have that mapped out, pull this off. Now that we know where all this is, we can essentially take these points and use them as mapping points for the guitar. And now we can go ahead and start drawing on. Just to make a side note here, this isn't going to be a video where I'm going to teach you how to draw onto the guitar. I'm going to do this in time lapse, and then when we get to the end, I'll have some more thoughts and maybe some more advice that I can push along. Now, a method that you can use to get your design onto the guitar, you can actually use that transfer method that we did in the Getting Started series, where I used a piece of carbon paper and essentially blew the design up, and you can lay it on here and essentially trace out your design What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna just draw it on. We'll go from there. Okay, so we have the basic concept drawn onto the guitar. So as we can see with this is, you're not trying to get it exactly perfect. So what I'm gonna do here now at this point is I have the basic idea. I have an idea of where everything's being laid out. I'm gonna tighten up the drawing some more and clean up the lines. Tool that I'm going to be using here while I do this, if I can find it. Yes, this is an electric eraser. If you guys have seen me use this in my videos before, I love this thing. It works really well. It removes lines fairly quickly. You don't have to worry about eraser marks on the surface. I'm gonna tighten this drawing up some more and then I'll come back a little bit with some more words to say. Okay, you guys, so now we have the concept drawn onto the guitar. It started as a rough, and then I took a softer lead and I kind of tightened it up just a little bit just so I could distinguish some of the lines. Once we start to actually put the paint and the color on, it'll actually start to come more live. Take your time because painting on a guitar definitely presents its challenge because it's not a flat surface entirely, and having it raised up off the table, you know, it can present a little bit of a challenge painting on it. Also, be careful, start out really light, get the basic image drawn down first before you decide to draw a little bit darker so you can see where you're at. So now the next part in this series is to go ahead and start painting. I mean, that's going to be a lot of fun. Probably handle the painting portion fairly similar to this because I already have a getting started series that teaches you how to use the pen. So now we're going to move on to the painting section of this series. So I'm going to end this video here. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, go ahead and leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll make sure that I get to those to answer them. And I will see you guys on the next video. Thanks.